scary because how do you express that to other people? How do you express that like someone has literally treated me differently because I'm black, but they've done it in such a refined way that I can't even explain it. I don't have the words to explain to you what has been done to me. Hi guys, welcome to my channel. My name is Dabi, and today's video is very difficult for me to make, and it's taken me a while to try my best to articulate myself properly, but I feel like this video just needed to be made, and it is addressing, as you've probably seen in the title, racism in the UK. Now, I'm in 2020 right now. We are in 2020 right now, and this has been one hell of a year. Apart from all the other stuff happening with the virus and all that, right now, this is a difficult time for Black people in America. There are a lot of changes happening. There has been a tragedy that has sparked this whole thing, that has sparked, kind of made the domino effect of everything happening at the moment. And I really hope that all of this, everyone speaking, everyone going out, is not in vain. And I just, obviously, I can't not start this video talking about George Floyd, and I will link the I'll put links down below for ways to support the movement, the Black Lives Matter movement, George Floyd's family, the families of other people that have been affected by this injustice, this constant injustice, the tragedy and all that. In light of all this, I have seen a lot of people in the UK saying, oh, like, I'm so grateful racism doesn't exist here. I'm so grateful, like, the police here aren't racist. Like, Black people don't go through these things in the UK, and that is a lie. And I don't even know how it's possible that people think racism doesn't exist in the UK, but that is why I'm making this video essentially. And I will say that I love this country. I moved to this country 3 years ago. I'm honestly grateful for all the opportunities and all the progress I've made in this country, but it has not been an easy journey. It has been very difficult. Like, I've gone through a lot of things that, to be honest, just because I'm Black, that's it. There's no go come, there's no, or maybe it's because, like, you see it very clearly and it's because you're Black. And I just want to address what racism is like in the UK, because it's not like in the US. Police do not carry guns. I'm obviously very, very grateful for that. Obviously, the UK is built the British Empire. Like, the British Empire, like, where did it come from? And a lot of slavery in the world of Black people is rooted in the British Empire, is rooted in this country. Like, that's where it started. Like, I'm not pointing fingers at, like, oh, the thing in America, everything going on in America is the fault of the UK. What we have here is a different thing. It's a different type of racism, and that's what I want to address today. If you've watched any of my videos, you'll know I make videos about moving to the UK and life in the UK. Sometimes I show my personal life in the UK, and I'm a believer in giving people the complete picture. I think a lot of my videos have shown the positive sides of living in the UK, and believe me, there are, obviously, especially for me moving, like, making the move. Like, if there weren't, I wouldn't have moved here. That's the honest truth. But I would like to give people information about the experiences of Black people in this country. Now, I am an immigrant, and I will say that I've done some work to educate myself on these issues. I'm not perfect, so please forgive any, like, discrepancies that might be in this video, but I'm just trying to kind of lend my voice to explain the problem in the UK, because people just don't like to admit it. Now, before people start coming for me in the comments or anything, I'm going to make a quick disclaimer that I do not think the whole United Kingdom is racist. That would literally just be a lie. However, there are people who are racist in this country. They exist. They are in your workplaces, they are in your hospitals, they are on your street, your neighbors, and like that is just how it works. That's how racism works, because that's why it's a problem. It's not that there are people that are in some like special racist place that are not interacting with anyone outside of their like sphere of influence. However, racism, the way it manifests itself in the US is more direct. It's more in your face, and like people will say their disgusting thoughts, their disgusting views straight at you because you are not black, you are rather because you are not white, because you are not straight, because you are not one of them. However, racism in the UK is very different. That does not mean that it has less of an impact. It will still have an impact, because these people who have these problematic views are in places that will influence other people's lives. They will influence black lives, influence brown lives, influence gay lives. That is the problem that we have. Now, the way it's set up in the UK, the way it manifests in the UK is very muted. It's very covert. People do not come at you with racist vim. People will come at you with things that will almost make you question your identity, question your sanity, question your line of thought, just like almost blow your mind. And sometimes it will happen, and a situation will happen, and 10 seconds later, 30 minutes later, you realize that that person just did me dirty because I was black. And it almost takes some time for you to even personally process sometimes. And it's a bit scary, because how do you express that to other people? How do you express that like someone has literally treated me differently because I'm black, but they've done it in such a refined way that I can't even explain it. I don't have the words to explain to you what has been done to me. The type of racism we're talking about right now is steeped in white privilege. The roots of it is white privilege. What is white privilege, you might ask? White privilege is basically the fact that there are certain people, white people, who obviously, like everyone else, will face problems, but their privilege means that, not that they're richer than you, not that they not that they have like something special about them, but just the fact that their skin color will never be a problem for them. It will never close doors for them. It will never make anyone treat them less than. And that is what white privilege is. And a lot of white people, most white people, don't even realize this is something they have. Don't realize that white people and black people in the exact same position do not experience the exact same thing. White people will have a more pleasant experience in most situations compared to their black or brown counterparts. Now, with racism in the UK, most people just do not want to admit that it exists at all. Like, they just don't want to. And when you think about it, a perfect example is Brexit. I'm not trying to get like super political, but when we're talking about Brexit and like you see them interviewing people on the BBC or something, and you see people say, oh, let's return Britain to where it was. Britain used to rule the world. What does that mean? Britain used to rob countries of like their people, of their wealth, of everything. Like, is that what you're trying to return to? And like, no one asks these people these things, but like that thought of Britain wants, like, let's return Britain to its former glory. What does that mean? Another example of the kind of racism and almost like laziness around race that you see in the UK is when Kobe Bryant died, the whole BBC put up I believe it was like a post or like pictures of the person who died, Kobe Bryant, and they put up LeBron James. That is laziness. That is laziness to not even be able to be bothered to figure out the difference between these black people. Like, they're all the same anyways, because that's what that means. Like, if you can't be bothered to figure out like who even died. As much as you might hate or love the royals, Meghan Markle, when she had her kid, there was someone who came out, someone who was influential, who came out and called her child, a baby, an innocent child, a monkey. Like, compared a child and a black mixed race child to the likeness of a monkey. And not only did that happen, he basically, when he apologized, he was like, he didn't understand how it could have been a bad thing. And then Piers Morgan, who is also very influential, ended up defending him as well. And it's just like, can black people even win ever? A good example in the UK of why people who are racist and people who have this type of mentality are a problem to us black people in the society is the Windrush Scandal. That scandal, that whole situation, only affected black people, let's be honest. So that means that as at the point where they sat down and decided to carry out this policy, they knew what the effect would be. Now, I'm going to explain what the Windrush Scandal is very loosely, but basically, there were a set of people from the Caribbean islands, which is obviously a former colony of the UK, that were invited into the UK because the economy was struggling about 50-60 years ago. So these were black people, obviously descendants of people robbed from Africa, but that's a whole other conversation. But these people were invited formally by the UK government, saying like, our economy is a bit messed up right now, we need more people. And these people came over with their children. Now, as at the time when these people came over, the parents were given papers. However, the children of these people, because they were so young and all that, kind of had their papers attached to their parents' passports. Now, moving on to a couple years ago when Windrush actually happened, the government basically woke up one day and said the children of these people, so people who had been in the UK for 50 years, 60 years, were here illegally. They decided, oh, why can't you prove that like you were meant to be here? Like, you invited them here, you invited their parents here. Like, as at the point where these people were brought into the country, there weren't even immigration policies existing. So what proof would they have? And basically, a lot of these people were not only just like declared illegal, but they were deported. Like, you're deporting someone who hasn't been to a country since they were 6 years old. What are you deporting them to exactly? And they're like 56 now. What exactly are you doing there? If that isn't racism, I do not know what else is. I'll make sure to link a video down below that I watched, where it's the personal story of one particular woman who thankfully was saved, but a lot of other people were not so lucky, but she still ended up in a detention camp. This woman has worked all of her working life, paid taxes in this country, and she ended up in what's the name of these places? The detention center for people who are illegal here. Like, do you understand why this doesn't make sense? Like, I'm not even going to bother to go into the fact that most of the stuff in the museums and all that they use as kind of cultural tourism is from other countries that they've stolen. But again, that is another conversation. If you watch football, think about how regularly in the UK you hear about racism towards players, racism from white fans towards black players, towards non-white players. And this has been going on for so many years, and like, no one wants to address it. Like, or maybe 1 or 2, 3 people will talk about it, but the institutionalized racism is still existing, and no one wants to do anything about it. A very good example that is so basic is when you are on the train or on a bus, it is not an unusual experience. This doesn't happen every day, but I also don't think I know any Black person this hasn't happened to, where you're just sitting down on your own on public transportation and someone is moving away from you, or you want to sit down and someone puts their bag down, not wanting you to sit down by them. Why did they do that? Because you are Black. Because you will see someone who is white come right by and they will move that bag for them to sit down there. Like, what do you think that is? Like, another kind of example is racism in like employment. There are studies that have been proven, the fact that sometimes if you have a more ethnic name, so if you have a more Asian, Black kind of name, some recruiters don't even want to see your CV. They don't even give you that chance. This is obviously, it's much better in London, but especially when you get outside London, that's a whole different ball game. That is just because a lot of those people some of them haven't seen Black people in person before, or they know one Black person. They've never spoken to a Black person before. So all of their ideas are steeped in just non-existent, stupid things. Another situation that kind of just comes to my mind is a situation where in the workplace where I personally experienced racism over a period of time, and like, to be honest, I just shut up about it because I was like, you know what, I can't even explain these things, so let me just leave it. And then it just built up and built up and built up, and it got to a point where there was this one day I was so upset and I spoke up for myself. I wasn't violent or anything like that, and that situation ended up with the person who was supposed to kind of be the person to defend me, or the person to kind of like resolve the whole issue, ended up making me apologize to the person who was oppressing me, the person who was literally making my life hell. I apologized to him, and like, it's not even just that I apologized. She got us in a room. It was a guy that was like the oppressor in this situation. She got us in a room and she was like, because as far as she's concerned, this is a like misunderstanding between both of us, and she made us try to talk it over. And in the middle of us talking over, obviously I was frustrated. This has been happening for months, and the guy, what he started with is that he's scared of me. Like, it was so ridiculous because there was zero situation that would ever make him scared of me. And he was like, the way I talk, the way I gesticulate makes him scared of me. It makes him think I'm going to attack him when like I'm talking and expressing myself with my hands, which like you've probably seen me do throughout this friggin' video. And she believed him. She actually fucking believed him and made me apologize. And yeah, he was just there and we had to keep working together. And just imagine how frustrating that is, that you're starting a conversation where you are a victim and you've finally gotten your voice and finally gotten the opportunity to stand up for yourself. And mind you, I reported the whole situation to this person. Like, I was the one who brought it up that like, you know what, this needs to stop and I need to speak for myself. And that's how it ended up. Imagine the fact that when you try to speak up for yourself, the next thing that happens is you're the angry Black person. Like, how do you, it's so frustrating. And like, obviously I'm finding it almost difficult to articulate. And I was so broken and so feeling very beaten down for a long time over that situation, because that's when I realized that like, you're not even being Black, you're almost not even allowed to speak up for yourself, because you speaking up for yourself is violence. That's already Black violence, and like, nobody wants that. And you are a threat to the community, you're a threat to your immediate society. It's exhausting being Black. And sorry, I'm almost getting a bit emotional. And it's just very interesting that through all of this, through these experiences, that, to be honest, we all have Google, we all have social media, we all see these things. a white person will now come up to you and be like, as a black person, please explain racism to me. Like, are you actually dumb? Like, that is literally asking someone who is being oppressed to explain their situation and defend why are you being oppressed, and like, let's see whether I'll believe you or not. That is the position you are putting me in when you ask me or any other black person to explain racism to you. Now, I'm not saying that like you shouldn't have these conversations with your non-black friends, or with white people with their black friends and black people with their non-black friends, but especially if you're not black and you want to start the conversation, think about how you are starting the conversation. Don't be lazy and don't come with zero information in your head. Don't try to do any research and you're just like, yeah, please explain your blackness to me, and why should I care? Because that's what you're doing if you don't do research beforehand. I really hope to some extent I've been able to explain myself and kind of explain to you who is watching what the problem is with racism in the UK and kind of how it manifests itself, and like the problem with it. Basically, I don't know why in 2020 I'm having to explain the problem with racism to people, but here we are. Yeah, and next time in the UK, if you hear people talking about like, oh, this area doesn't feel British again, you know what, maybe you should ask them, what do they mean by that statement? What do you mean by the area doesn't feel British again? Because usually it means black people are moving in. Why does that make you uncomfortable? But yeah, I hope you've enjoyed today's video. There's a lot more information, a lot more statistics that will honestly just terrify the hell out of you. Black people are twice as likely to die in custody as anyone else. Like, the rate of incarceration of black people is ridiculous compared to our actual percentage in the population. There's a lot of research out there. Please do your best to inform yourself. If you're a white person, inform yourself, because you need to recognize your white privilege and recognize the situation of people who don't look like you in the same country, in the same situations as you. And as a black person, it is up to us, especially Africans, especially black people who weren't even born here, who didn't experience this growing up, to also inform ourselves about what is going on with our counterparts. Like, why do you think that so many of us right now in other parts of the country, the world, are so broken by what is happening in America and like the boldness of it? But yeah, we live in crazy times, and I hope you watching are supporting the black people in America, supporting the black people in your local community, supporting black people around you, not only with your mouth, not only with your social media posts, but with your actions, with your money. Yes, with your money. And yeah, I don't even know how to end this video, but yeah, I guess I'll see you in the next video.